Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is February 5th, 2024 and Barcelona's sporting director Deco has given an extremely interesting interview where he discussed a myriad of topics such as Xavi's resignation, his successor, the Negreira case, BTO Roque, etc. And we're gonna be discussing in this video everything that Deco said. So let's begin. And now begin with the news that the Barcelona sporting director Anderson Luis de Souza, otherwise known as Deco, has given a very interesting interview where he spoke about a myriad of topics, starting with Xavi's decision to resign at the end of the season, where Deco said, "I didn't expect it. I'm with him on a day-to-day basis, and we've been planning arrivals like BTO Roque for weeks, or deciding if with Balde's injury we had access to signings in the winter. There is always speculation, but I never thought about that. We were talking about next season. That's why he was renewed. Laporta always wanted to be with him until the end of his mandate. It was Xavi who from the beginning wanted a shorter contract. He told us, if I don't win, I don't think I will continue." So Deco explained that he didn't see Xavi's resignation announcement coming because they had renewed Xavi not too long ago. Also, that Deco and Xavi have been planning for the rest of the season and for the upcoming season as well. And also Deco explaining that Laporta wanted to extend Xavi's contract until the end of Laporta's mandate, which is in 2026. However, it was Xavi who wanted a shorter contract because from day one, Xavi always explained that if things did not go well, if Barcelona were not winning trophies or if the project wasn't doing well, he would step down. And this just goes to show that Xavi Hernandez has always been a man of the club, a culé through and through, a Barcelona legend, and he always understood that if things did not go well, he needed to step aside, and that's exactly what Xavi has done. He has noticed that the project is not working, so he has decided to step down in order to make way for someone else who can perhaps turn things around. So this is for the people who continue to say that it was the club who pushed out Xavi, or it was the fans or the media, etc. It's none of that, as Xavi himself has explained, and Deco now confirming that it was Xavi himself who decided to leave because he saw and he acknowledged that things were not going well under his management, and therefore, being the man of the club that he is, he has stepped down in order to make way for someone else who could perhaps do things a little bit better. Now, Deco was also asked about Xavi's reasons to leave, and in regards to that, he said, "He has already explained a lot. My feeling is that the league that was won last year was not valued too much, and it should have been done. The fans celebrated it, but the press and the general public played it down." Now, this is where Deco, I think, errs just like Xavi Hernandez did when he made those kind of statements, talking about how La Liga not being valued, the La Liga that Barcelona won not being valued. And of course, I did make a video about that. If you're more interested in everything I had to say about Xavi's statements, make sure to check out that video. But to sum it up, I think it's a mistake because people did value La Liga. I think it was one of the most celebrated La Liga titles in recent years, given that many people did not expect Barcelona to win La Liga. What fans are upset about now is that we haven't seen any improvement from last season. In fact, we have seen the team regress and get worse than last season, and that's why people or fans are upset. It's not because we don't value La Liga. It's because we don't value having the Champions League spots being at risk. We don't value the Copa del Rey and the Super Cup humiliations. Not that we lost or got knocked out, that happens, but the fact that we got humiliated in both cups, and we don't appreciate the performance of the team. Now, I think the mistake in the message that La Liga was not valued stems from the mistake that Xavi somehow thinks that because he won La Liga, we shouldn't demand anything else from him, and that's of course very erroneous. It's not a way to see things, because just because you performed last season doesn't mean that you get to stop performing. You're expected to continue to perform. That's in every football club in the world, big or small, and not just in the football world, that's just in life in general. Just because you had a great year at work last year doesn't mean that this year you get to slack off and not do anything. You would get fired. The same thing is in football. Just because you achieve something the prior season, you're still going to be expected to achieve things doesn't mean you get to slack off and just point at the fact that, look, I won something last year. So that's it. Now, Deco kind of touches about what I just said and what I said also in the video when Xavi made those statements about his work not being appreciated. When he said, I want to make it clear that this team was never asked to win. What was asked is to compete, because when you compete well, the chances of winning increases. If you ask me today, I believe that La Liga is not over. Saturday's victory gives us some hope. The next matches before Napoli will be important for us and for our rivals. I'm happy when we compete like we did on Saturday, with that maturity. Xavi and the president know that. I've always told them that if we are lucky enough to have the full squad, we can go far. If we give it everything we've got, we are an outstanding team. So I think here Deco touching a bit on what I just said a few moments ago, that it's not that we expect Barcelona to win trebles or to win the Champions League. What we expect is for Barcelona to compete, and we haven't seen Barcelona compete in this season, and that's why the fans are upset. It's not because we don't appreciate what Xavi has done last season or we don't appreciate La Liga win. Of course we appreciate that, but what we don't appreciate is for our team not to compete. Now, Deco also saying that La Liga is still at play, given that, of course, Atletico de Madrid and Real Madrid drew yesterday. Also, Girona drew, so all those teams have dropped points. So La Liga is still in play in Deco's mind. Mathematically speaking, I think he is correct. Of course, it will all depend on how Barcelona performs. If we continue building on the successes that we had these last two matches, perhaps we can still have a chance at La Liga. But if we regress and start playing like previous matches, then no, of course, we don't have any chance. Now, Deco also spoke about Xavi's successor or the coach that should take his place. And in regards to that, Deco said, he has to follow a line of work. We will hardly be a team that doesn't want to play well, that doesn't want to have the ball. Starting from that idea, each coach has his own characteristics, but whoever comes in has to have the ambition and hunger to do great things, and he must know where he is coming from. Now, in regards to Jurgen Klopp, Deco said he's a great coach, but I don't think it's the right time to talk about that. The new coach will want to make changes, but first we will have to explain the project and the ideas. There are many options. So Deco explaining that Barcelona have an idea what the project should look like, and based on that, they want to bring a coach that fits that project or that fits that idea of what the project should be in the mind of the board of directors and Deco. And I have to say that I'm really happy to hear Deco saying this. This is something I talked about in a previous video. I don't think we should just throw names out there. Oh, maybe Jurgen Klopp, maybe this guy, maybe that guy. I think the club first needs to understand and decide what kind of project they want to build. And based on that, hire a coach that fits that idea or that can implement that idea of the project that Barcelona want to see, versus just bringing any coach and then seeing what that coach idea is or what project that coach wants to do. I think it should be the other way around. And it seems that Deco is on the same page. So I'm really happy to hear Deco saying that. Now, Deco spoke about how the dynamics of the market change these days as opposed to many years ago. And in regards to that, the Barcelona sporting director said, when Barca went on the market 20 years ago, they had competition from Real Madrid, Manchester United, and little else. Now, all the Premier League teams have the ability to sign. And there is PSG. And there was no city as powerful as there is today. Teams are better organized and players can choose from more clubs. But Barcelona still has power. We can seduce players and we are able to bring in important players. So the two reasons I decided to highlight this section from Deco's interview is, number one, Deco hitting a very important point, which is saying back in the day, Barcelona didn't have much competition in the market besides Real Madrid, Manchester United, and maybe a club or two here and there. So it was much easier to lure in big stars and lure in big signings. But today, things have changed incredibly. Almost every team in the Premier League can make big signings, especially with so many of them being owned by oil money. So there's a lot more competition in the market, including, of course, PSG. And that makes things a little bit more difficult. And that, of course, I bring that up is because Barcelona have missed out on more signings as of late. But that's not because the club is not doing a good job. Simply, there's a lot more competition out there. There's a lot more clubs that the players can choose from. And of course, you have clubs who can offer a lot more money than Barcelona, which makes it more difficult for Barcelona to lure in players. And that is why Barcelona has missed out on some signings like Echeverri, Güler, or Bergval most recently. It's not because anything the club is doing, simply it's very difficult to compete with all the money that's out there. But Deco also making another important point, which is something I talked about in the past as well, that despite all that competition, despite Barcelona not being good financially, despite all the mess and the trouble that Barcelona are facing thanks to Bartomeu and Rosé, Barcelona can still lure in some pretty big names, because after all, this is FC Barcelona, one of the biggest and greatest clubs in the world, one of the most historic clubs in the world, and that name still means something. So Barcelona can still bring in players despite these same players having much higher offers from other clubs, because Barcelona is still the dream destination for many players out there in the world. And speaking of young promising players who rejected much higher offers in order to come to FC Barcelona, Deco also discussed BTO Roque when he said, "I think you guys killed the kid before he even started playing. Liverpool bought Darwin Núñez 2 years ago from Benfica for 90 million, and Newcastle paid 70 million for Isaac. The price analysis has to be done in a while, but it's not an insane price to pay. It's 30 million, and the other sums depend on his performance. Hopefully we will pay them, as happened with Pedri." Roque was signed for next season with the idea of going alongside Lewandowski. We managed to get him to come in January. He's a player who scores goals with a different profile to Marguerite. We don't have anyone who attacks from deep and asks for space like Samuel or Luis Suarez did, without wanting to compare them, and I haven't bought him on my own. So Deco making two very important observations. The first one is how some people out there decided to kill BTO Roque before he even played. In fact, I saw some comments on my videos and during my live stream saying that BTO Roque was not that good, that we had gotten ripped off, which to me is absolutely insane, because how can you make an assessment of a player if he hasn't even played yet? It's total absurdity. Now, the second point that Deco makes is the price of BTO Roque that Barcelona paid, which I agree with the sporting director is relatively very low to the market conditions. We only paid 30 million euros. I know a lot of people like to keep bringing up the number 60 million euros. We didn't pay 60 million for BTO. We only paid 30. The other 30 are variables that will only be paid if those variables are met. And if we do pay them, then great. It means that BTO Roque performed well and he met all of his variables. So yes, please go ahead, meet them all, and we'll gladly pay the other 30 million. But when you look at the market, when you look how much clubs are paying for other players who are not as promising or not as good, they are playing much more. So the fact that we were able to sign BTO Roque for 30 million euros, that's one hell of a transaction, especially when you take into consideration that there were many clubs out there who were offering BTO Roque a lot more money, and they were also offering Atletico Paranaense a lot more money, and yet we were able to sign one of the most exciting and promising young talents in the world. Now, Deco also spoke about Lamine Yamal, and in regards to him, he said, "Lamine is getting more minutes than he should for his age due to injuries. He is a teenager who has grown 10 centimeters in heights this past year. I have a son his age. I know what I'm talking about. But he's a different player, the way he makes decisions on the pitch, and above all, because you see him enjoying himself. At that age, that's the most important thing. We are facing something different than what we have to take care of. The good thing about Leo Messi was that he had a team that didn't demand anything from him. He played in an atmosphere of growth because during the first few years, he didn't have any responsibility. When it was his turn to take it on, he already had all the experience. We will try to let Lamine grow with a bit of calm." Now, more statements that I enjoyed from Deco, because he's making a very important point that Lamine Yamal, he is still a child after all. He's still growing, he's still learning, he's still developing, and we can't be putting responsibility on him of the right flank. We can't be putting the responsibility of him of scoring goals and winning matches. Unfortunately, I saw a lot of people trying to kill Lamine Yamal after he missed those 2 chances in the Copa del Rey. We shouldn't be thinking that way. He shouldn't have had that responsibility of scoring those goals to begin with. We should be protecting him, nurturing him so he can continue growing and developing the way we did with Leo Messi, and we all saw how that paid off. We need to replicate the same thing with Lamine. We can't put the responsibility on his shoulder. He's still a kid. He needs to continue growing and developing before we can ask him to put the responsibility of winning on his shoulder. Now, Deco also spoke about the Negreira case when he was asked if he ever felt like the referees were helping him when he was a player. And in regards to that, Deco said, "I felt helped by Samuel's goals, Ronnie's moves, Iniesta's, Xavi's, Valdez's saves, Puyol's tackles, Marquez's change of play. I don't believe in that kind of influence. So Deco saying that no, he didn't feel like he was being helped by the referees, that he felt like he was being helped by the likes of Ronaldinho, Xavi, Iniesta, Puyol, Marquez, etc. And that's something I've talked about in previous videos. You don't have to be a football genius to look back at the matches of Pep Guardiola or Rijkaard or Luis Enrique's Barcelona's and realize that these teams did not win because of referees. These teams won because they simply imposed themselves on the field. They dominated the matches that they played. They subjugated their opponents and they won playing beautiful football. And at no point did they even need the help of referees, let alone get the help of the referees. This is simply Madrid fans just not being able to stomach the idea that for many years Barcelona was one of the best teams in the entire world. So there you have it, guys. All of the statements of Deco from his very interesting interview. Let me know your thoughts down below on everything that Deco said. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, Visca Barça.